Guys, welcome. Good to have you here. Let's start, Trevor, if we might, with you, because your device was referenced earlier by Kevin. Tell us about MyString, how it works, and how you are planning to bring it into practice.
Yep, great. Thanks so much, Tyler. Thanks for inviting me. So before I do that, let me answer how we actually got here. So I get to work with great companies like GE and Northwell and Ping An and others to help them with innovation pipelines. And I've been working with Northwell for the last few months. Terrific group of individuals, as Michael Dowling said in the introduction, 70,000 strong and innovating and changing the world as we go. So we've been identifying new technologies that warrant a spin-out. And the latest spin-out is this, it's MyString. And so, as Kevin said, MyString, and this is your string, it's by MyString. We probably should have left that to the marketing group to figure out, but the idea is to use this to really build on about 70 years worth of data. You can go back into the 1950s and find papers that were written about stimulating the vagus nerve and having incredible clinical outcomes. And so, as Kevin said, what we're planning to do is to build 25,000 of those beautiful things. These are our prototypes that we're using in our clinical studies right now. We're going to give 25,000 of these away and let the community really build on what the right applications are and what the right parameters are. Because there are hundreds and hundreds of papers out there using ear stimulation. No one's quite figured out the right parameters and the right approaches. And so we're going to take that, put those into the community, and pull that data in. And so we're starting off as a device company, and we will end up as a software company.
So the vagus nerve, what little I know, what little I just learned, ends here in your ear.
One.
And this device does what? Sends a signal to that nerve? How long do I wear it? What is it designed to affect or change?
Great questions, Tyler. So you probably can't see it. I can show you later, but in the left ear, there are two very small electrodes. They put a very, very mild electric current into your ear. You can barely feel it. It feels like a sort of a tingling sensation. For a period of 5 minutes a day, you can then use this, and we have a number of parameters that any of us could then use. And as Kevin said, we don't completely know today which parameters will affect rheumatoid arthritis or migraines or anxiety. That's what the study is going to tell us.
So here is an example of a device that potentially could be hugely disruptive in medicine. Jonathan, what disruption do you have your eye on today? Technology?
Well, I'm
process.
very focused on the disruption of the Bush children at dinner.
Yeah,
I've been having dinner every single night with all the Bush children for 14 months, and they're very disruptive. I didn't know this when I was flying around the country, and so that's been very focused. But I think that in business, in society, we have been doing a lot of bundling of things together. So we kind of, much of the software we used to buy is now given to us by a bundler called Google in exchange for all of our time and all of our privacy. And that's been a good trade for a while, you know. Yeah. And medicine, similarly, we've been witnessing, lots of bundling. The payment for medicine is sort of bundled into the paycheck or into the tax bill. The delivery of medicine has been increasingly bundled around the hospital. This is an invention that's a medical device that's being bundled around the medical center, which creates some synergies and some ability to share, but it creates inefficiencies. And so I think unbundling is the big disruption that we'll see, whether that's unbundling of the payment from the insurance company, so the patient might pay directly instead of the insurance company, so you'd have no idea what's going on. You might keep the money if you shopped. Unbundling of the doctor from the doctor's office. Virtually nothing that doctors do in the doctor's office requires the doctor to be in the office. We've certainly heard about unbundling of the surgery from the hospital. So there's lots of places where, certainly it would have been done years ago if there was a demand curve in medicine, which there isn't for perfectly reasonable social reasons. But that unbundling of technology from assets and services from technology is a theme.
Maybe you just answered it, but maybe I'll ask the question a little bit differently. I asked you there, what disruption do you have your eye on?
Yeah.
From where you sit, what needs to be disrupted most?
The biggest problem is the demand curve, that if you raise your price in medicine, you don't lose any market share. If you lower your price in medicine, you don't gain any market share. If your device ends up working incredibly well to cure a disease more cost effectively, it takes 30 years for adoption as opposed to instantly. If you want to make an invention and see results and get that dopamine rush from invention, and you're a software developer, it's 10 minutes and it's live. It's not just approved. And here it's a decade to get it sort of theoretically a little further down the line. It's sort of building the big dig with a spoon. Yes, definitely, if you keep digging there for 10 more years, you will get to the middle of Boston Harbor. Oh, great, So to me, the demand curve is the most interesting thing. How can you get it so that when somebody gets a better invention, they get that boom of adoption without the partnerships and the cajolings and the sidling ups that happen in medicine so much more than in other sectors.
So Trevor, you're going about the process of commercializing a disruption in a seemingly in a different way.
Right.
Why?
Well, something that's been referenced by some of the other speakers, and you just referenced it as well, is if you take a traditional approach, what you would do with these headphones is you would decide on an application, let's say rheumatoid arthritis. You would then work out exactly what the right endpoint would be. You'd spend millions of dollars figuring out what the study would look like. Then you'd spend tens of millions of dollars actually carrying out that study. You'd fast forward 10 years, and then the FDA may or may not give you your clearance to go forward and market the product. That's one way to do it. I don't think it's the right way to do it, because you would not be able to use these for the next 10 years because they would be locked up in some clinical studies.
And if you were wrong at the end of those 10 years, holy moly.
The money is gone.
The money is gone, and that's the story of a huge number of biotechs.
So how do you short circuit that? I get it, you're going to give them away, but how do you then circumvent the regulations that would say, well, you can't do that. You can't.
So we're not circumventing.
This is an uncertified device.
We're working with the regulatory authorities, but instead what we want to do is to give these to individuals with the idea that these are wellness products. We want you to try this, and we will, from the data that we get back from you, we will then make the decision on what the right data is, what the right applications are, and then we will use that to go to the FDA or to the other regulatory bodies. So we're not circumventing, we're approaching this in a slightly different way. We're using a community crowdsourcing approach to help us answer where we should dig,
right,
instead of deciding where we dig first and then dig deeper.
And this is what's cool about, I think, Northwell's focus on research is that they're, by taking this digital sort of bent, they stay outside of the you must have a Manhattan project and you must be done with it before you have a product. And everyone's, we're going to, what did Joe Biden, big dig cancer or whatever they called it? These guys can actually do everything that's going quickly in society. There's two societies, right? There's the tech world, which is exploding and the singularity is actually near. And there's the rest of the world where small businesses and buses and roads are the same. There's no innovation at all. And what these guys are doing is slipping a little piece of medicine over the line to the part of the world that allows for agile. This is agile product development. Sure. Maybe it'll be a skateboard. Maybe it'll be a spaceship. Maybe it'll cure,
Maybe it'll work in our rheumatoid arthritis,
because
but
you're
not in something else.
And so you can iterate lots of threads, and people can try and get the dopamine rush of invention and deployment in a short cycle.
So how do you, you're going to give away how many, 25,000 of these? Is that what I heard earlier?
We're making 25,000 of these next year. We're partnering with a mainstream manufacturer to do that, and then also with a games app developer to develop the app, so that the way that this will work is you'll put the headphones on, You'll have a
And I can play Fortnite while I'm getting treatment. My son
I
could.
don't think you should, but you
Yeah.
could. That is other issues.
You'd be obscenely good. Way too good.
My vagus nerve is.
It would affect your anyway. Moving on. So you put these on. A very well-known personality will talk to you, walk you through setting the parameters. You'll have an app on your phone, which is a gamified app. You'll be building avatars. You'll be using the headset. We have a lot of feedback mechanisms from this, and then from your watch and from other mechanisms, we'll be pulling that data
How
back.
do you identify, not to get too deep in the weeds here, but how will you identify the 25,000 people to whom you will give these devices? In other words, we're going to give 3,000 of them to people with this stage rheumatoid arthritis, 4,000 of them to people with nerve back pain, 8,000 of them to people with migraine, 9,000, how do you do that?
You just did it. So as Kevin said, we're going to work with the patient advocacy groups to do exactly that. So we're not going to give these to everybody in this room, sorry. But what we are going to do is target groups who want to quit smoking. There's a lot of data saying that vagus nerve stimulation can help you with smoking cessation. So we're targeting those groups. We're targeting groups with rheumatoid arthritis. We're targeting groups with migraines. And so we'll be working with the patient groups to allow us to identify those individuals and then give these devices to those individuals.
Are you thinking about opening the API so other people could build apps off the same firmware? I was going to ask the Medtronic guy the same thing. Like, one of the things that happens in tech that would never happen in medicine, but since you guys are being different, you could consider it. I mean, just say, if I wanted to start an ADD management company, God knows why I would want that. Could I use, your device and, pool the data and actually build an app on your platform?
Potentially.
As you, Jonathan, look at technologies that are disrupting healthcare today, which ones stand out to you, and which ones that may be just a little bit beyond, over the horizon, feel like they have the greatest commercial potential?
So if this is about unbundling, what are the biggest overbundled sort of clutches that need to be teased apart? Certainly the data, right? So healthcare, I tried with Athena, got part way, don't remember what happened next. But even Athena was overbundled. A lot of the reason Athena's stock was flat was we were spending so much money on R&D trying to untease the application layer from the compute, from the storage, so that it could be used, in a broader way. So companies like Innovacor or others that are pure tech outside of healthcare, there's a company called Twilio, which is just the application layer. But there are companies that essentialize the pieces of what might be, what Epic sort of was built around, or Cerner, or all the great companies, into their piece parts and says, I'll give you just the compute, or I'll give you just the ETL, the extract, transfer, and load, so that you can have your data plus the data from 50 other different health centers. Because really, as you get into these rare diseases, no medical center, no matter how big they are, has anywhere near the data set size that they need. And even if they do partnerships, it's so kludgy, the merging and the rationalizing. So companies that essentialize the tech into its piece parts and then make them just wicked fast and good, I like that. Companies that essentialize what a doctor does. Pull the exam room and the medical assistant and the butcher paper and the stethoscope, which barely works for anything anymore anyway, and just get to this incredible doctor-patient moment. It's probably an app. It's probably, and it can be primary care, but it can be, think of all the things, right? How much of cardiology is actually doctors looking at digits? Dermatology, how much of that is images? Could you actually do better if you had an image where you could measure the dimensionality in a more precise way instead of sort of guesstimating on an arm or whatever? Those so Firefly Health, nothing but primary care and behavioral medicine. They have no offices. I love that idea. Sondermind, nothing but mental health. They rent office space like a WeWork kind of thing, but increasingly moving towards just essentializing and getting intelligent about. I'm not sure if anybody wants to. I don't want to talk to a robot about my anxiety. I'd rather talk to my lawnmower. But maybe a mid-level, maybe a nutritionist. Think about how much of medicine is behavioral stuff, weight loss, sugar, stuff like that. A nutritionist being on the doctor's team, you could afford that if you took the cost of the medical building out. So those are the kinds
so
of companies that I think are doing that well.
You've got high passion about this. What?
Why not?
No, which leads me to this. If you, he's going to put those things on you. He's going to deregulate.
Actually, never
mind.
I'm fine.
So if there's one thing that
It's perfect now.
if there's one thing that you see that needs to be disrupted, but isn't being disrupted,
Demand curve. There's no demand curve.
Yeah.
So we're getting it a little bit with as deductibles go up, right? But it's this little tiny window where you're responsible, right? Below it, you're not. Above it, you're not.
Is that what frustrates you the most?
Sure, because you watch all this slag stay in the system that would be expunged if and you see all these inventions kind of rattle around, not getting adopted. If there was something that said, look, and there's no product management in surgery or in delivery. I mean, we try through teamwork and coordination and super ego and goodwill, but in other sectors where you don't have the protectionist, sort of buffers, this stuff gets ripped through very quickly. I do believe we could have a half-price healthcare product if we introduce the demand curve. I believe that you could get the same coverage, maybe a few fewer specialty pharmas, I'm not sure, but literally half price. And a 5%, 2%, 3% reduction that people are talking about.
And you get that how? You get that how? Is it by placing
what percentage of the 31
consumer,
seconds do you want me to spend on it?
placing the we got a minute. We got 28 seconds now. By placing the consumer closer to the
right.
provider,
and it's probably the
taking out-
doctor or Northwell, some sort of navigator. Think about when Merrill Lynch, right, in your world, invented the wrap account. Instead of telling you, how about this stock? How about this stock? How about this stock? They say, hey, give me a percent, and I'll look at all the stocks, and I'll get you a
make
nice
something for you.
bundle, and I won't charge you by the stock. Can you imagine if the doctor said, I will never create another freaking CPT code again, but I'm going to watch your health.
Yeah.
I'm going to get enough money from you. I'm going to get a little piece, and then I'm going to watch this, and I'm going to buy your term. I'm going to, try. I'm going to use Agile, with my colleagues, and I'm not going to have to, show up for each trade the way medicine works today. I think that's a big end time has come out of time.
Trevor, let me close with you. Obviously, take those, wear them. You'll be better. You'll be better by the end of the day. Trevor, how critical in the development process are partnerships? Could you do things alone?
Never.
How much harder?
No. Look, we've already heard in this conference today about med devices, about the importance of AI, the importance of genomics, the importance of the consumer. You cannot do this alone. You have to build partnerships. And that's what I think Northwell has been great at. Kevin had a slide of all the different partners that he's working with, and that's a subsection of what they're doing. It's critical. You've got to partner in this world. There's no way of advancing otherwise. And that's what I find most exciting, because you go back to the beginnings of the human genome 20 years ago, it was all about one thing, or four things, A, C, G, and T. Now it's about building these partnerships, bringing things together, disparate technologies, and actually doing, finally, some cool things in healthcare. And that's what I find really exciting.
Trevor, thank you very much. Jonathan, thank you. Jonathan, what was in your tea?
It's tea. Tea and ideas.
Thanks, man. That was great. Thank you so much.